Hey guys, so today we had the second day of JPOW speaking. Overall, just a big day of pretty much consolidation with no real range. We didn't really get anything new from JPOW, nothing bullish, nothing bearish. We just kind of held this range pretty much until really 12, so like almost 3 hours into the day. We just didn't have any trend. We had a really aggressive attempt to break out here that obviously led to then a new low of day, which was quite impressive. And then we had this really impressive $1.50, $1.60 candle right here at the end of the day on the last 15 minutes too, or last 30 minutes, which was quite interesting. So taking a look at where we're at now, really everything comes down to jobs tomorrow. Jobless claims is tomorrow. They have been trending down, which would be a strong economy, which would be bearish for the markets, which means Jay Powell can be more aggressive with his rate hikes. However, for the last month, very slowly, the last 4 weeks of jobs data has actually trended up, which would be saying the economy is not as strong anymore or is weakening a little bit, which could be bullishly received. So tomorrow's going to be a big day because we're trying to price in this 50 basis point hike. If we get a strong, which as in like the expectation right now is 190K. So if we come in somewhere over like say 200K, which is more jobs openings than expected, that would be very bullish for the markets, and that would decrease our 50 basis point chances by quite a bit and pretty significantly cause a rally. However, if we happen to get jobs data under 190K tomorrow, there's a really good chance that's going to be very negatively taken. And we're probably going to see quite a red opening, and the chances of a 50 basis point hike is going to go up even more. From a price action standpoint here on SPY, we came down after this really nice evening doji star pattern here, and now we have formed the exact opposite morning doji star pattern, which would be an upside push pattern. The one interesting thing is after Thursday's pretty much $12 rally in 3 days here, it was expected that we would come back down and backfill some supports before we would push up higher. And that's pretty much what we're seeing happening here today and really yesterday. So now that we have come back down and backfilled over 50% of this run up here, and we had tested 100 EMA, if we can get back over 399.6, the daily 850 and 200 EMA, that would be very bullish, and I would be looking for a push back to 405.5. On this chart here, it does not show that we came down far enough to have touched this 396.4 supply and take it out. However, on Thinkorswim, which is where I'm primarily charting my supply and demand, the price action is a little different, and it did come down far enough to warrant taking out this supply. So now that this supply, which was a support, is taken out, we pretty much are sitting between a 394.6 demand support area and our 405.2 supply, which is a resistance. According to the technicals right now, we should be looking to put in a new demand. And if we get an upside push, and especially if we can close somewhere up in this 401.5 area tomorrow, we should actually establish 398.4 as a new demand, which is a support. And that would also be extremely bullish and would make me even more believe we're going to see a push to 405.2. Now, the one thing to keep in mind here with the technicals is the fact that we could easily see data come out tomorrow that could completely negate the technicals. So while on Monday we had a technical price action support for a breakdown, and we did see that happen because the data supported it. If the data does not support it tomorrow, then we could just see a further downside. And my overall target, if we continue down, would be 394.5. Taking a look at futures here, same exact pattern, and it's starting to play out a little bit here with a slight green open or green move up here on futures. We came back down, we back tested this 39.90 area and the daily 100 EMA, and we are closing over that with a nice double bottom. So this morning doji star pattern really should provide upside, and my ultimate target for tomorrow really is 40.20. If and when we get back over 40.20, then that opens at 40.55 to really 40.95 breakout area. The one thing that was interesting about today was the VIX. So we had that morning sell-off that I showed him when I first opened up here. And the VIX really did not support that move. The VIX was actually unwinding. So that was kind of interesting to watch, as the VIX was obviously not going with SPY. And the fact that Yesterday, we had a huge push up on the VIX with the pricing in of the 50 basis point hike. And now that we're at nearly almost 80%, just over 70% on a chance for a 50 basis point hike, the fact that the VIX is unwinding while that's happening is very interesting and almost makes me think that the market doesn't believe that that actually is going to happen. And I talked about it in the written TA, but that's kind of where I stand too, honestly, is I don't think we're actually going to get a 50 basis point hike. Now, jobs data tomorrow and CPI on Tuesday is really going to be the final nail in the coffin for that. But assuming that jobs data doesn't come in super, super strong economy representing, and based on the CPI numbers I see, unless consensus comes out end of week, it should be out either tomorrow or Friday, and completely changes those readings that I'm seeing right now, I actually expect a bullish read and a bullishly, more importantly, the market's going to bullishly receive the CPI, and what's going to happen is they're going to have been expecting this 50 basis point hike. And when we get a good CPI that actually shows inflation is still coming down, granted it's going to be very slow, when they see that, they're actually going to go back to pricing in a 25 basis point hike. And most likely that's what we're going to get then at FOMC. And that's going to cause a pretty significant rally, in my opinion. So that's basically where I'm at right now, is I'm looking for more or less some consolidation for us to be somewhere between 390 and really 405. Just depends on what happens the next 2 days leading into CPI. And CPI is going to probably put us back in that 420 range if what we get are seeing right now is what we get. One thing I'm starting to look at a little bit is the dollar and the 10-year yield a little more closely. So the dollar itself is showing this nice rising wedge pattern, and we actually are touching this or just over it now, this 105.6 level on the dollar, which you can see the last time we were there was December 7th, which if you scroll back on SPY, December 7th was right here. So you can see we were trading really down this 394 range, but even then, the dollar pretty much held this area that we're in right here all of December. And if you look in the area that we were there, SPY was closer down here to the 380 area. So this pattern on the dollar would show that we're going to get a nice breakdown, and we're going to actually kind of see a repeat of basically what happened here. We had this big breakout and then it dumped aggressively, which according to this pattern would support the idea that CPI comes in bullish and the dollar's going to drop, the 10-year and the yields are going to drop, and SPY should see a pretty good rally. Take a look at the 10-year here, same thing, nice little breakout, or sorry, rising wedge right here. Same thing, so we broke through the fours just yesterday, just briefly, or I guess it would technically be today, but the candle closed and reopened. So you can see the last time we were up in this range was pretty much November, and when SPY traded there, we were in the pretty much the same range. So this is pretty spot on when you look at the yield and the dollar right now. And the last little thing we'll talk about here is Bitcoin. So Bitcoin actually was looking pretty solid until end of day here. It just recently had a pretty big sell-off here. I don't know if maybe something came through Congress, like with legislation maybe, because they've been talking about that a lot today. But you can see here pretty much right around 545. We had a pretty big dump on Bitcoin, but for most part today, it was holding really well on its supports, and now it is back under its 200 EMA. See if it closes under it tonight. In about an hour and 20 minutes, the market will close for Bitcoin, or the daily candle will. If it does, that'll be the first time it's closed under it since January, and that could be a pretty big deal. We'll have a really big support area to watch right here at 21.2K. So we'll see what happens with jobs in the morning, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow.